My name is Matthew, and if you've ever been taken advantage of by someone you thought you trusted, this story may resonate with you. My wife, Francesca, was supposed to be my strongest supporter. I was mistaken. This is the story of how I discovered my wife cheating on me with my boss. And the moment I witnessed it for myself, I knew things would never be the same again. I have always thought that hard work pays rewards, that if you put in the time, effort, and sacrifice, you will eventually reap the benefits. I worked for Sterling Enterprises, which is one of the most respected corporations in the sector. While several of my coworkers departed the workplace at exactly 5 p.m., I stayed behind to ensure that every report and strategy were impeccable. I wasn't only doing the bare minimum. I was investing in my future. And now it was going to pay off, as the corporation was hosting its annual Sterling Enterprises dinner. It was formal, exclusive, and high-stakes campaigns were not just sent out via email. They were introduced in front of hundreds of executives, clients, and staff. If you were called up that night, it meant your efforts were noticed and you were on your way to something bigger. And I was among the top contenders. I was aware that my name was being discussed for a huge promotion. This wasn't simply about acquiring a new title. It entailed better compensation, more chances, and genuine authority within the corporation. That night was supposed to be a celebration for all of us, not just me. If there was one thing I was certain about, it was Francesca, my wife, my biggest fan, my partner. We'd been together for years, through everything. She wasn't simply my wife. She was the person who made me believe in myself, even when I didn't. I never questioned her loyalty. I never had any cause to. At least, that is what I believed. The night of the company's annual dinner had arrived. The venue was exactly what one would expect from a company like Sterling Enterprises. I was proud not only of my job, but also of the people who stood by me. Francesca. Francesca looked amazing. She'd always been effortlessly lovely. But tonight, she handled herself with an elegance that drew attention the instant we came in. I introduced her to my colleagues, and as always, she knew precisely what to say and how to have a conversation, and everyone adored her for it. She smiled, laughed, and exchanged light talk, completely comfortable in a meeting full of high-level executives. Even some of the top partners, who scarcely noticed most employees, gravitated for her. I stood near her, admiring the attention she received. This was my wife and partner, the woman I'd spent my life with, and in that moment, I was proud to have her by my side. However, as the night progressed, I began to notice certain things. Francesca, my wife, appeared to be drawn to Gerald, my boss, a man with power, influence, and connections. He wasn't only regarded within the organization. He had power over opportunities. He chose who moved up and who remained stationary. Initially, it appeared to be harmless. She was simply being friendly, correct? I persuaded myself she was only being courteous. She is just having a discussion. But my gut told me otherwise. Gerald leaned in and said something I couldn't hear. Francesca smiled. I felt like an outsider. I felt like I was watching something happen that I didn't comprehend. And for the first time that night, I became uneasy. Hours later, Francesca leaned very close and gently touched my arm. "I need to take this," she remarked, lifting her phone slightly. I glanced at the screen. No name, only a number. So I simply nodded. "Yes, sure, I will be here." She smiled, squeezed my arm, and went away, disappearing amid a sea of well-dressed executives and servers carrying platters of champagne. At first, I didn't think much of it. I remained focused on the conversations around me, nodding as my colleagues discussed market trends and planned initiatives. But 20 minutes later, Francesca was still gone. I casually looked around the room, hoping to spot her someplace, perhaps near the bar or speaking with another guest. Nothing. Another 5 minutes. I checked my phone. There are no messages from her. Perhaps she went outside, where it was quieter. Perhaps the call was simply taking longer than planned. I returned to my talk, attempting to ignore the tingling sensation running up my spine. But wait another 5 minutes. It had been 30 minutes since she had left, and I was starting to lose confidence. I felt someone nudging my arm, jolting me out of my reverie. It was Eric, one of my colleagues. We weren't precisely tight, but we'd worked together enough to have a good rapport. He leaned in slightly, swirling the whiskey in his glass, and said, "Just loud enough for me to hear your patience, bro. If my wife was that close to my boss, I'd have some questions." I laughed. "What exactly are you talking about?" I asked casually. Eric took a cautious sip of his drink before shrugging. "Come on, guy, we all see it. She's been snuggling up with Gerald all night." A laughing touch on his arm, giving him those looks. I did not respond. I could not. I merely smiled and assured him that my wife was being pleasant by now. The uneasiness in my stomach had developed into full-fledged mistrust. I checked my watch. Francesca had excused herself 35 minutes ago to take a phone call. I began searching the room, looking for her familiar figure among the executives, servers, and colleagues. But no matter where I looked, she was not present. I looked toward the bar, thinking she might have run into an old friend. Nothing. I looked toward the balcony, where guests frequently went to get some fresh air. Empty. That's when it struck me. I hadn't seen Gerald in a while either. As my mind began to connect the dots, a chill ran up my spine. My pulse rate increased as I proceeded across the venue, my speed accelerating with each stride, while the clunky machines around me faded into background noise. I wasn't sure where I was going. My feet have just moved, motivated by an inclination I really wanted to be wrong about. As I entered one of the calmer passageways, I passed the restrooms, and that's when I heard a low mutter, barely audible through the heavy doors. I slowed my feet, trying to hear my racing thoughts. Then I heard a muffled sigh. I took a step forward, then another, until I was only inches away from the restroom door. My heart pounded against my ribs, but I pushed myself to scream out for Francesca. Silence. I swallowed hard. My voice is firmer now. "Francesca, are you there?" Still nothing. A rustling sound ensued. People make this noise when they are caught doing something they should not be doing. The hush, the pause. It told me everything. My patience ran out. I dug into my pocket and pulled out my phone, prepared to summon security if necessary. But before I could push the button, the door creaked open. Francesca went out first. Her hair was a little untidy, with strands hanging loose across her flushed cheeks. The dress she had worn so flawlessly before was now crumpled and slightly askew, as if someone had pulled on it. Gerald stepped out straight behind her. His tie was unfastened. The top button on his shirt was undone. His expression was not as worried as Francesca's. It was tight, unreadable. He appeared to be assessing the severity of the damage. For a time, the three of us stood still. None of us spoke, but we didn't have to. The truth was right in front of my face. I felt nothing, no wrath, and no sudden eruption. I reached for my phone, unlocked it, and began recording. Today is the annual Sterling Enterprises dinner. This is Francesca, my wife, and Gerald, my boss. I just caught them making out in a restroom. Gerald stiffened. Francesca gasped and stepped toward me, her voice breaking. "Matt, please." I raised a hand, shutting her off. I was not interested in making excuses. I was not interested in explanations. I kept the camera on them for a few more seconds, watching as their perfect little lie shattered beneath the weight of reality. Then, without saying anything else, I stopped filming and went away. I did not say anything to one of them. There was nothing to say and nothing left to fix. I didn't need Francesca's explanation. Alternatively, Gerald may issue a week-long apology. I left her behind and drove home alone. I didn't care about the promotion any longer. While driving, my phone vibrated in the passenger seat. A text, a missed call, and another. I did not even glance at them. I did not want to hear her voice. An hour passed, and the door creaked open. Francesca stepped inside. Her face was smeared with tears, her makeup smudged. She appeared to have been crying throughout the entire drive, but, truthfully, I didn't care. She said nothing at first, just stood there, eyes searching for me. I am desperate for some reassurance, some sort of justification to fix things. Matthew and I held up my hand, stopping her before she could say anything else. Don't. This was all I said. I did not want to hear her explanation. I did not want to hear how remorseful she was. When I caught them, everything changed. There was no more yelling throughout the night. There's no arguing, just silence. We didn't say another word. I sat on the couch, staring at the television with little interest in what was on. She stood near the door for a time. Her body language pleaded for me to say something, but I can't and won't. By the time I went to bed, the texts and calls had accumulated. Colleagues had somehow learned about what had happened. Everyone wanted to know what had happened and why I had left early. I didn't respond. I didn't want to deal with the gossip and whispers behind my back. I did not need to hear it from anyone else. I awoke confident that I was finished. I knew Francesca was somewhere in the house, probably sitting quietly, waiting for me to speak. I hoped there was still something left to salvage, but there wasn't. I got out of bed and took my time heading to the kitchen. I spotted Francesca sitting at the kitchen table. Her hands were tightly curled around a mug of coffee that had gone cold. She looked up the second I walked in. Her eyes were bloodshot and puffy from a night of crying. "Matt, please." Her voice cracked as she spoke, a desperate cry. I took out a chair and sat across from her, my face unreadable. I didn't say anything right away and didn't express any sympathy. I wasn't there to soothe her. I was here to put an end to this. Our marriage has already ended. My voice was calm, firm, and unwavering. There was no anger left. There's no need to raise your voice or make accusations. The damage was already done. Francesca flinched as if I had physically hit her. "No, Matthew, please. This was a mistake. I know I messed up, but we can get over this. I love you." I gave a quick giggle and shook my head. "Do you adore me? Was it only Gerald, or is there more?" She didn't respond. She did not even try. And the hush. That was all the assurance I needed. I exhaled and pushed my chair back as I stood. "Your stay in this house will end when the divorce is finalized," I stated, my tone unwavering. "After that, we're finished." Tears streamed down her cheeks as she burst into unrestrained sobs. Her body shook with the weight of what she had done. I turned and walked away, leaving her alone with the last thing she had, the results of her own betrayal. News moves quickly in corporate settings, but a controversy like this spreads like wildfire. It started as whispers, with colleagues exchanging knowing looks. At first, I ignored it. I was not interested in participating in the office rumor mill. By Monday morning, the higher-ups had learned what had happened at the corporate dinner. Gerald was found sneaking around with an employee's wife, which was more than simply a humiliating personal failure. It was a professional disaster. The organization took pride in its reputation for ethics and leadership, and Gerald's conduct did not simply cross the boundary. They destroyed it. An internal investigation was begun, and as they probed deeper, they discovered something that did not surprise me at all. Gerald was well-versed in company issues. Francesca was not the first. It turns out that he utilized his position to pursue many women at work, manipulating situations to his advantage. Some were consensual. Others were blurred, with lines of coercion disguised as mentorship. HR had previously ignored the situation, but not anymore. They now had evidence, witnesses, and a scandal too significant to ignore. Gerald was granted leave at the conclusion of the week. A week later, he was dismissed. His career and reputation were shattered in an instant. The powerful, untouchable CEO who formerly determined the fate of others had his own future taken away. And me? I did not celebrate. I did not gloat. I didn't care. By the time Gerald's demise was complete, I had already moved on. Francisca, on the other hand, she still didn't understand it. Even after the dust had settled and everything had collapsed, she continued to gaze at me with those desperate, puzzled eyes, as if she couldn't understand why it had all gone apart. Some people damage their life without realizing how or why. She was one of them. And, to be honest, that was no longer my problem. Weeks passed since our separation. My life began to seem normal again. Work was steady. My routine was restored. And for the first time in a long time, I felt completely myself. Then one night, my phone buzzed with a single message. "I miss you. Can we speak?" I stared at the screen, allowing the words to soak in. I read it, deleted it, and then moved on. Here's the next story. The perfume of roasted turkey, cinnamon-spiced yams, and freshly made pumpkin pie permeated the house, blending with the subtle scent of pine from the wreath. Victoria insisted on hanging prematurely. The dining room was a cozy cocoon of laughter and small talk, framed by flickering lighting and the subtle hum of jazz, which Victoria thought made us appear classy. "Pass the gravy, Liam." My mother's voice sliced through the discussion, silky as silk, yet tinged with something colder. She wore her traditional Thanksgiving mask, pearl earrings, a tight smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, and a piercing stare that cataloged every aspect, like an accountant balancing books. Liam, my younger brother, smirked and gave her the gravy boat, with the same nonchalant assurance he always possessed. He was the golden child, alluring and effortlessly cool, with a grin that could sell falsehoods wrapped in velvet. People forgiven this guy before they even realized what he had done wrong. Victoria chuckled as he muttered something to her, her hand resting against his forearm. Just a second. Too long. I felt a spark of unease travel through me, but I pushed it aside. Family is meant to be a safe place, right? Besides, they had always been close. That is what I told myself. The sound of children laughing came in from the backyard, accentuated by the crunching of leaves under small feet. It was a wonderful picture. A family sewn together with holiday cheer. The type people post on social media, with captions like #grateful or blessed. But perfection contains flaws, even if you don't notice them immediately away. After dinner, with plates piled high with crumbs and leftover regrets, I snuck away to the garage for a glass. The door creaked slightly as I pulled it open. The chilly air wrapped about me like a peaceful respite. The garage had always been my refuge, a place where I could breathe freely without the burden of expectations. I reached for the tiny fridge, but stopped as I heard voices coming through the thin drywall. My folks were in the next room. Their tones were low yet sharp enough to cut through the noise of my mind. "Liam, don't tell your brother about your affair with Victoria." My mother snarled, her voice a caustic whisper that glued me to the spot. "Would you like to move back in with us? Divorce? Dragging the children into this mess? If he were smart, he'd appreciate us even without you. Those youngsters wouldn't even own nice jeans." The words hit me like a freight train, and the force seemed to change beneath my feet. My mind strained to understand them, as if it refused to accept the betrayal as true. My heart pounded so hard I was convinced they'd hear it, exposing me and ripping the tiny thread of ignorance I was clinging to without even realizing it. My father then spoke in a rough and uncaring tone. "Okay, but when the kids reach 18, I will tell them the truth. They need to know who their real father is." I could not move. I could not breathe. The scene around me distorted, and their voices faded into static, as if my mind was attempting to protect me from further harm. I glanced at the beer in my hand, condensation falling from my knuckles, ground me in even the tiniest ways. For a second, I considered marching in there, flipping the table, screaming, and demanding answers. But something colder landed on me instead. The iciness softened the immediate shock. Rage was not the answer. Not yet. I quietly backed away. My footfall were soft on the concrete. Be careful not to disclose my presence. The door snaps shut behind me, like a tombstone. When I returned to the house, Victoria's laughing welcomed me first. She sat too close to Liam again, bright and hollow. Their heads were tilted together as they discussed something on his phone. My folks were back at the table. Casual masks were completely in place. Plates cleared as if nothing had happened, as if they hadn't just blown up my entire existence. "Is everything okay?" Victoria asked. Her eyes met mine with the same ease she had likely used while lying beneath my brother. I smiled as a practiced courteous gesture. Yeah, I just needed a minute. And in that moment, I knew it wasn't going to end in a fight. There will be no dramatic yelling matches or toppled tables. No, something different is needed here. Something colder. I sat back down past the mashed potatoes, plotting their demise with each bite. The vehicle ride home was filled with a suffocating silence, broken only by the repetitive thud of the windshield wipers washing away the light precipitation. The streetlights cast flickering shadows on Victoria's face as she looked through her phone, her thumb sliding lazily across the screen. I observed her out of the corner of my eye. My hold on the steering wheel tightens with each delicate tap from her fingers. "Have you had fun?" she inquired abruptly, her voice light and laced with the usual sweetness that used to melt me. She looked over and gave me a grin that had once been my home, but now felt like a dagger shoved against my throat. I faked a smile which felt strange on my face. "Yeah, best Thanksgiving ever." The words tasted like ash, empty and brittle, shattering in the gap between us. She chuckled softly, oblivious, and returned her focus to her phone. The screen's glow highlighted her face, showing the exquisite slope of her jaw and the softness of her lips, which I had once stroked with devotion. They now felt like lies etched into skin. I kept my eyes on the road, but my thoughts was a battlefield. Every recollection seems contaminated. Every giggle, every kiss, every whispered, "I love you." They weren't ours anymore. They were shared, stolen and stained. When we arrived home, the children were sleeping in the rear. Their heads lie against one another, small, innocent anchors in the tempest rising within me. I carried them to bed, tucked them in, and tenderly kissed each of their foreheads. They were the only pure thing remaining in my universe. Victoria was in our bedroom when I walked in, changing into one of my old t-shirts that hung loosely about her body. She glanced over her shoulder, her eyes gentle and sleepy. "You okay?" "You have been quiet. Just exhausted," I murmured, removing my jacket and tossed it over the chair. She nodded, appearing content with the excuse, and went under the blankets. I looked at her for a moment, standing in the dim light, my heart a cold, unrecognizable thing in my chest. I eventually got into a bed next to her, but sleep remained elusive. I lay there staring at the ceiling, listening to the steady pattern of her breathing as she fell asleep, peaceful, unburdened, unworthy. Hours have passed. The room was dark, and the only sound was the quiet ticking of the clock on the nightstand. I carefully rotated my head, focusing on her face. She looked so innocent in her slumber, but I knew better now. Behind those shuttered eyes was a world of betrayal. I was curious how many falsehoods could fit behind them. How many realities did she conceal beneath that placid facade? Carefully, the first slipped out of bed, gliding like a shadow. Her phone was on the nightstand screen, dark and fragile. My fingertips lingered over it for a heartbeat before I took it up, my thumb instantly locating the passcode she'd never bothered to conceal. So why would she? I was the trusting fool. The screen became blindingly bright in the darkness. My heart raced, and my breath became shallow as I scrolled through her texts. It did not take long to locate them. My brother's name, Liam, was at the top of the thread, bold and damning. When I opened it, the world fell apart again. "Last night was incredible. I can't quit thinking about you. I wish I were in your bed right now. God, you're driving me nuts." He has no idea, right? You are so much better than him in every way. There were other photographs. I'll never forget what I saw. She smiled. The one she gave me 1,000 times is now twisted into something horrible and reserved for him. Their statements were explicit, raw, and laced with lust and deception. I felt something inside of me crack. Not a theatrical shattering, but a clean, crisp break. Precise and final. I carefully set the phone down, as if it were fragile, despite the strong desire to bash it against the wall. But rage wouldn't help me here. Not yet. Revenge is not served hot. It's slow cooked. I laid back down next to her, staring at the ceiling once more. But things had changed. The ceiling was no longer simply plaster and paint. It was a canvas on which I painted the beginnings of my wrath. Her breathing remained steady and pleasant, unaware of the storm that was going to destroy her world, and I smiled into the darkness. The early sun filtered through the slats, creating long, thin lines on the bedroom floor. Victoria's side of the bed was cold and deserted. She had left early for work, as usual. It was simply another weekday in her meticulously planned schedule. But for me, it was the day things changed. I sat on the edge of the bed for a long time, staring at nothing. My heart did not race. My hands did not quiver. The wrath had subsided days ago, leaving behind something colder, planned, and surgical. I was not going to leave angry. I was leaving precisely. I acted rapidly, motivated by the clarity of a man with nothing to lose. I logged into all of our joint accounts, bank savings, and education money. The cursor blinked like a metronome, consistent and indifferent. I put every last penny into an account she had no idea existed. The screen flash transaction was completed with antiseptic efficiency of a machine, unaware that it had just destroyed the financial arteries of a marriage. It was gone as if it had never belonged to us. I even paid my final bills. Utilities, rent, and all that remains is a phantom of what once was. She returned home to find the lights still on and the water running, but no family. There is no trace of us. I strolled into the kids' room. Their little mattresses, packed with plush animals and superhero comforters, were a stark contrast to the chill developing inside me. I knelt between them, smoothing my daughter's hair off her forehead. Her lazy eyes flickered open. "Daddy," she muttered. "Hello, honey," I whispered sweetly. "We are going on an adventure today. It's just you, myself, and your brother." Her eyes brightened up quickly, like a road trip. Just like that. I smiled, but it did not reach my eyes. Packing was simple. I took only what was important. Clothes and some toys. Important paperwork and passports. I left behind the wedding photo that used to be proudly displayed on the mantle. Nothing more than a vestige of a life I no longer recognize. While the kids have breakfast, I wiped all social media accounts, email records, and even the cloud storage where we save family photos. I burnt old letters, anniversary cards, and family photos in the fireplace, watching the ashes curl and disappear. It felt strangely satisfying, like shedding dead skin. I changed the lock on the doors. She'd returned home, key in hand, only to find herself locked out of the life she'd taken for granted. I loaded the car and buckled the kids in. My daughter grasped her beloved stuffed bunny, while my son gripped his tablet, unaware that this was more than simply a trip. It was an escape. As I pulled out of the driveway, I looked in the rearview mirror. The house stood there, commonplace and unaltered, yet hollow. A tombstone commemorating the demise of everything I believed was genuine. No, there's no explanation. Just left. It took her precisely 3 hours to discover something was wrong. My phone buzzed relentlessly, Victoria's name flashing across the screen repeatedly. I let it ring. Voicemail after voicemail trickled in, her voice changing with each one. "Hello, where are you? I assumed you'd be home by now. Why aren't you responding? Call me back." "Okay, this is not humorous. Where are the children? What the hell is going on?" "Right. Answer the darn phone. Please, call me back. I don't comprehend what's going on." Her voice became thinner with each call, the arrogance fading and being replaced by anxiety. But I did not respond. But I did listen to them. Every desperate cry and bewildered sob is treated as if it were melody, a soundtrack for my escape, and with each message, the frigid satisfaction increased. By the time the sun had dropped beyond the horizon, we were far away. New city, new names, new lives, waiting to be built. from the ashes. She arrived home to an empty house. She had opened the door to stillness. She would stand in the doorway and yell out names. No one responded, and she realized she had lost everything. But I had already gone. 5 years is an odd unit of time. It is both an eternity and a blink of an eye. In 5 years, I established a new life, a new name, a new job, and a new city free of the ghosts of whispered betrayals. The youngsters grew quickly, too fast. Really? My daughter Mia had lost her baby lisp and became interested with space and dinosaurs. My son Ariel began to ask serious questions about life, the world, and why broccoli exists if no one loves it. They were cheerful, blissfully oblivious of the storm we had just survived. Their recollections of Victoria faded like a bad dream that they couldn't quite recall. In the morning, I kept things usual, or at least what would be considered standard soccer practice. School runs and burnt pancakes on Sunday mornings. But underlying it all, buried away like a hidden file on an old hard drive, lay the past. It never really departed. It lingered, calm yet lively, waiting. Then it came back. My phone vibrated. One wet Thursday evening, I was looking through my science project, a disorganized jumble of glitter and glue, when I saw the number flash across the screen. No name, just a number, but I knew it. Muscle memory kicked in before my brain did. I felt my gut tightening, not with terror, but rather with something colder. Anticipation. I replied, "Hello, lost." My voice was steady and flat. A pause, followed by a voice I had not heard in 5 years. "Your mother has left," my dad said. His tone is flat and vacuous. I pictured him holding a whiskey glass. "Liam is 2. You should return." There was no emotion, no appreciation of the devastation he had helped cause. Just the facts, delivered as a grocery list. I looked out the window, watching the rain streak down the glass, each drop a soft drumming against the past. When I asked, because asking why seemed pointless a few days ago. Car accident. His sentences were curt and indifferent. The funeral is on Saturday. You should be here. I let the silence last long enough to get uncomfortable, long enough for him to wonder if I had hung up. Then I gave a slow, frigid smile. "I will be there." I spoke gently, my voice icy, for this was the moment I had been waiting for. The ideal opportunity to finish what I started. Driving back to that town felt like flipping through an old photo album. Familiar, but remote. It's as if the memories are not your own. The streets had not changed significantly. The same old street signs and crumbling sidewalks. But I was not the same. Mia and Ariel stayed with a close friend, safe and away from the mess I was about to step into. They did not need to see the ghosts. This was my weight to bear. I pulled up to my folks' house. The same fading shutters. The same unkempt yard my father never bothered to maintain. It appeared smaller somehow, as if time had shrunk beneath the weight of secrets. My father answered the door before I even knocked, as if he had been standing there waiting. "You seem older," he continued, scrutinizing me with the same hard, judging gaze. "So do you." I responded by going past him without waiting for an invitation. The house smelled of aged wood, cheap whiskey, and vague regret. Family portraits remained on the walls, but I realized Liam's face was everywhere, as if he'd been the sun. We all revolved around my mother's gorgeous grins in each photo. "Frozen in time, how have you been?" my father inquired, pouring himself a glass as if we were old friends catching up alive. I responded, my gaze drawn to a snapshot of Victoria and Liam from some family event. I'd conveniently forgotten. Her smile caused my jaw to stiffen. "I understand things became complicated." He began to swirl the amber liquid in his glass. "But time heals. You can't hang on to the past indefinitely." I turned to face him, letting the mask slide just enough to reveal the edge beneath. "Funny," I replied quietly. "After all these years, I expected you to be more adept at concealing your guilt." You didn't flinch, simply sipped his drink and shrugged. It was exactly what it was. Your mother believed we were protecting you. Is someone protecting me? I laughed. The sound was sharp and sour. Is that what you're calling it? Lying, covering up, allowing my wife to screw my brother behind my back. That is protection. His expression hardened, but he did not say anything. So what could he say? There is no excuse for being a coward. Revenge is not an act. It is an art form. And, like any masterpiece, it takes patience, precision, and a steady hand. When I returned to my former hometown, I did not come as a broken guy. They were expecting to see Ryan's hollowed-out shell, betrayed by his family and wife. No. That man died the day I disappeared with my children. The man who returned had been reborn, sharper and colder. A artisan about to finish his magnum opus. The initial step was straightforward. Blend in. I did not come back as Ryan. The name was tarnished. I was bound to memories I had hidden. Instead, I became Michael Graves, a calm, unassuming man yearning for a new beginning. The name was clean, untraceable, and supported by forged paperwork that portrayed me as just another face in the crowd. I discovered a house with peeling paint, a sagging porch, and a stunning perspective of Victoria's deteriorating existence. The irony was nearly poetry. She lived in a shabby apartment complex, far from the suburban paradise we had created together. The bright, ambitious lady I had married had vanished, replaced by someone who resembled a shadow wearing her skin. She did not recognize me the first time we met. How could she? The man standing before her was not the one she had betrayed. I felt better for months. I observed from the sidelines, not stalking. Observing as a scientist evaluating a specimen. Victoria worked in a diner on the outskirts of town, waiting tables. Her face was worn, and her once bright smile had faded into something brittle. Her manager, Carl, a filthy man, treated her like dirt. She swallowed forcefully while barking directions. Politeness. The woman who believed she was too wonderful for me was now unable to afford decency. Her vehicle was a beaten-up sedan with a missing hubcap. She was overdue on her rent. I knew since I purchased the building under a different alias. Landlord by day, phantom at night. I observed her flirt with men for tips. Her charisma, a cheap trick that yields decreasing results. She'd lost the shine, the magnetic pole she previously possessed. And Liam is gone. According to rumors, he left her for someone younger. Someone with fewer miles of remorse engraved across her face. No wedding ring. There's no happily ever after, just abandonment. Poetic justice is administered cold. My parents were not much better. My dad's health had deteriorated. Stroke? Perhaps karma's subtle method of tightening the rope. My mother had retreated into isolation, her keen tongue muffled by the weight of shame. Or maybe it was just bitterness that her golden kid perished in a car accident before she could experience his flawless existence. But I wasn't finished. Watching wasn't enough. It was time to relocate. I selected the diner as my stage. When I stepped inside, the bell above the door chimed. One evening, the stale smell of coffee and fried food hung in the air. Victoria was there, cleaning off the table. Her hair is tied back. Exhaustion was painted beneath her eyes. Our gazes locked for a brief moment. Something flickered. Recognition, perhaps. But I was a ghost with a new face, and ghosts do not exist. "What might I get you?" she inquired, her voice lacking the warmth it previously had for me. "Coffee?" I responded, my lips twitching with a tiny smile. "Black." She nodded and walked away without another glance. But that was only the first move. In the following weeks, I became a regular. Same seat, same order. Conversations are casual, nothing personal. Just enough to become part of her daily habit. I could see it unfold piece by piece, her guard dropping as curiosity simmered beneath the surface. One evening, as she poured my coffee, she inquired, "You aren't from here, are you?" "I moved here recently," I responded smoothly. "Needed a change of scenery." She laughed softly. "Yes, I understand the sensation." The fissures were forming. It wasn't long until she opened up. Loneliness has a way of making people reveal their secrets. She told me how her ex glossed over the details, portraying herself as the victim in a hazy sob story that hardly scraped the surface. I listened. I nodded. I played the compassionate stranger, but only behind a courteous grin. I was honing a knife. I offered to help when her car broke down, a small gesture that builds trust. I paid her rent secretly for 2 months, simply to make her feel like things were getting better, as if she were not drowning. I then pulled the rug. The landlord increased the rent. Her shifts at the diner were reduced. Her automobile was mysteriously towed for unpaid tickets she didn't recall receiving. I watched as she sank into desperation. She was looking for stability that did not exist until one night, when she knocked on my door. She stood there, soaking in the rain. Her eyes were wide with desperation. I wasn't sure who else to ask. She stammered and shivered. "Can I come inside?" I stepped aside, letting her enter the house I'd purchased solely to destroy her. She sat on the ancient couch, wringing her hands, her pride crushed by necessity. "I'm sorry for bothering you. I'm merely overdue on my rent and don't have anyone to turn to." "What has happened to your family?" I interrupted quietly, reclining back in my chair. "Your husband? Your brother?" She froze. Her eyes met mine, perplexity turning to terror. "How do you know?" I genuinely grinned. "The one that says checkmate, because I am not Michael." The first leaned forward, my voice lowering to a whisper. "I'm Ryan." The color faded from her face like ink into water. She attempted to speak, but no words emerged. Just a broken, gasping cry of betrayal doesn't taste as delicious when you're the one doing it. "Surprise." I tilted my head. "Do not be. You've always underestimated me." She started crying. Begging followed next. "It always does." "Please, Ryan, I didn't mean it." "Oh, you meant it," I exclaimed, getting up. "You merely did not intend to pay for it." I did not need to yell. The choir did all of the work. I let her sit there, soaking in the awareness that her life's collapse was not a result of bad luck. That was me. Every unpaid payment, every lost job, every moment of despair. Me. "I took everything from you," I muttered, stooping down so she could see the man she had produced. "Just as you did to me. The only difference, I am still standing." And then I left her there. Because sometimes the ultimate vengeance does not include taking someone's life. It's about making sure people can live with the ruins. Revenge was more than just an aim. It was a precise and beautiful process of demolition. I didn't simply want them to fall. I wanted to take the rug out from under their feet and watch them scurry as the ground beneath them disappeared. Liam, my parents, Victoria. I dismantled their life one by one, brick by brick, lie by lie. Liam had always been my parents' golden kid, the charming, irresponsible younger brother who could never go wrong. After Victoria and I disappeared, he attempted to rebuild, established a company consulting and finance practice, something dazzling with grandiose promises and much larger lies. But Liam had a deadly fault: arrogance. He believed he was untouchable. I started tiny, an anonymous tip for the tax authorities. A whisper here, a document leak there, and their fraudulent audits found very genuine inconsistencies. Money laundering, bogus contracts, and falsified records are all buried behind layers of shell firms. His downfall was stunning. I watched from a distance as the news broke. Local entrepreneur Liam Hunter is under investigation for fraud. His face was plastered over headlines, and his smug assurance had been replaced by panic. I even went to the court sessions, sitting silently in the back, watching him sweat in fine clothes. He'd never be able to purchase again after the verdict was announced. Guilty on several counts. I sent him a letter. There's no return address. Only 3 words were typed in bold. "Remember me, brother?" My folks were tougher. Their armor was fashioned from years of self-righteousness, denial, and pride. Even the most solid walls contain cracks if you know where to look. I began with their finances. Subtle disturbances, Anonymous calls to the IRS about suspected offshore accounts, and untraceable leaks about my father's dodgy deals from years before. They were community leaders, known for charity galas and arrogant smiles at neighborhood gatherings. However, when people smell blood in the water, it makes no difference how tall you were. Rumors evolved into controversies. Friends became strangers. Invitations stopped arriving. And then comes the ultimate blow. I emailed them copies of the recorded chats. Those Thanksgiving whispers had devastated my existence. Their own comments were filled with arrogance and betrayal. They are now weaponized against them. There's no signature, just a sticky note attached. Family always knows best. But Victoria was unique. For her, revenge was more than just exposing. It was personal. I sent letters anonymously, of course. Each one was meticulously made, like drops of poison in an already bitter cup. The initial letter was easy. I am happy without you. Second, the children are doing well. They don't miss things they didn't need. The third contains photographs. Photos of me with Mia and Ariel smiling, living, and growing a life. She was not a part of each letter, chipped away at her, layer by layer, until one night she broke. It was late. It's late, and the world feels silent, as if it were holding its breath. The rain beat against the windows, and the sky was dark and merciless. Then, a knock. I knew it was her. Before I even opened the door, Victoria stood there, soaked, her hair matted to her face, makeup smudged, her eyes lifeless and vacant. She looked nothing like the woman I once knew. Victoria, who was once confident and energetic, had vanished, leaving behind someone shattered and needy. The rain had not stopped. It was a constant deluge, the type that crept into your bones, making the world appear dark and heavy. But I stayed dry, framed in the doorway to the life I had rebuilt. Victoria knelt at my doorstep, soaked, shivering, and broken. Her knees landed on a wet slab of concrete. Her tears were indistinguishable from the rain streaming down her cheeks. She grasped the barrier as if it were the last thing keeping her connected to reality. "Ryan, please." Her voice was rough from sobbing. I was stupid, I realized, but I apologize. I'm so sorry. "I have been lost without you." I said nothing at first. Leaning casually against the doorframe, I wanted her words to linger in the air, heavy and meaningless. I felt the same way about her promises as before. While she carved daggers into my back, I heard only empty echoes of loyalty. She continued going, desperation, clawing at each word I changed. I swear I had no idea what I had until I lost it. "Please, Ryan, I miss you. I miss us, the children." I silenced her with a sharp, bitter laugh. It was not forced. It was authentic, like the sound of years of suppressed wrath suddenly escaping through the cracks. "Us," I repeated, taking a step forward. She had to bend her neck to look up at me. Her hot, bulging eyes probed my face for a glimpse of the man she knew, but that man was gone. "Do you think you deserve to be forgiven?" I tilted my head slightly, my voice low but sharp as broken glass. "After everything," she sobbed harder. She clasped her hands together as if she were praying, as if I were a god who could save her. "I made a mistake," she said, her voice shaking. I was perplexed. "I did not mean to hurt you. Did not mean to hurt me," I snapped, my smile vanishing to something icy, something sharp. "Victoria, you did not just injure me. You devastated me. You shattered everything. We built our marriage and family. And for what? A fling with my brother." Her expression fell as shame twisted her features. But I didn't feel anything. No pity, no regret, only satisfaction. "Ryan, please." She whispered again, her hands quivering. "I have lost everything. You were all that mattered." I bent down so we were only inches apart. She flinched as if she expected kindness, perhaps even a sense of comfort. Instead, I said, "You are nothing to me. Less than nothing." The words hit harder than a slap. Her breath made her eyes wide with disbelief. as if she had believed her tears might wipe away the past. But you cannot. Unburned ashes. I stood up and walked back into my warm, dry home, leaving her kneeling in the cold. I closed the door. I did not slam it. I did not need to. Silence was louder than any words I could have said. The past does not disappear. It lingers, like smoke from a fire, like the lingering odor of something burned long ago. You can rebuild, repaint, and rename. However, some echoes never totally fade. After I closed the door on Victoria, I assumed that was the end of it. This is the final chapter, sealed and completed. But life does not operate that way, not when the ashes are still warm. Weeks pass, then months. I did not hear from her again. Not directly, but the rumors reached me. Victoria lost her job shortly after that night. She'd already been dangling by a thread, her performance deteriorating as debt accumulated. She burned bridges like it was her second pastime, just like she destroyed our marriage. The house we previously shared was foreclosed. The life she'd built is falling beneath her feet. Rumor had it that she attempted to reconcile with Liam, seeking to reignite whatever toxic spark they had previously shared. But Liam wasn't the golden boy anymore. Liam had always been the light of the party, with his easy smile, charm, and unwavering confidence. However, charm does not pay legal bills following his sentence. He spiraled quickly. His assets were taken. His reputation is in shambles. The costly pals vanished like smoke in the wind. No more yacht parties or business initiatives. Only cheap whiskey and cheaper apartments. I heard he was busted for DUI. Face bruised, mugshot posted online as a trophy of failure. Victoria's face, which she had previously thought was worth sacrificing her family for, suddenly appeared hollow, sunken. He was past his prime, poetic. My parents, the builders of betrayal, were not exempt either. They had formerly thrived on control, pulling strings like a puppeteer. They were convinced they knew best. However, when the lies were exposed, they were left with nothing but each other and the crumbling foundation of their own hypocrisy. Their buddies left them. Their social circles, which they had always taken pride in, became frigid. Their names were muttered with hatred rather than admiration. I did not pay a single visit, but I did receive a letter when my mother served legal notice. Nothing personal. My father's handwriting is written at the bottom in unsteady pen. She wanted to see you one final time. I crumpled it up without reading the rest. Some debts are worth collecting while they sink in the aftermath of their own decisions. I thrived. I created a business from the ground up. Something real, something personal. No shortcuts, no falsehoods. The children grew up strong and smart, unaffected by the shadows of their background. They understood why we left, but not enough to bear the weight of it. That burden was my alone to bear. Then there was Sophie. She was nothing like Victoria, or where Victoria had gone. Sharp edges are masked under sweet smiles. Sophie was genuine. Her genuine laughter and touch healed me in ways I never imagined possible. She did not fill a vacuum, because I was no longer hollow. I was whole. Nonetheless, the past has a way of lingering, even late at night. When the house was quiet and the world seemed still, I'd find myself glancing at old photos that I never tossed away. Not because I missed that existence, but because I needed a reminder of who I was and what I had overcome. Of what I had overcome. The ashes of what was did not define me, but they sure as hell fuel me. The years rolled by, softening the harsh edges of the past. However, they were never entirely dulled. Time does not cure all wounds. It simply teaches you how to live with the scars. My life had settled into something I never expected to have again. Peace. Real peace. Not the frail kind you pretend to have while you're drowning in lies, but the quiet, steady kind that comes with hard-earned survival. The youngsters developed quickly, as they always do. They were once small enough to fit on my shoulders. Then they surpassed me in height. They have their own opinions. They ask their own queries, particularly the questions. and I knew the toughest part was coming. It was a cool fall evening, the kind where the sky turned liquid gold as the sun set beyond the horizon. My daughter, Mia, was 17, and she was sitting on the porch with me, her legs tucked under her. We sipped hot cocoa while watching the leaves fall. She was calm and considerate, too quiet. Then she asked it, "Can I ask you something, Dad?" I know I felt something in my chest, like a faraway drumbeat. "Anything, kiddo." I kept my voice light and steady. She hesitated, peering into her cup, then looked up, her eyes so similar to mine it was disturbing. "What happened to Mom? Why did we leave?" The question remained in the air, heavier than the fading light. I could have sugarcoated it, using half-facts and ambiguous responses, but I promised myself that I would never lie to my children. Not after all, so I told her. Not the sordid details, nor the venom, just the truth. Your mother made decisions that harmed our family, choices that undermined trust, the kind of trust that's difficult to restore. I looked forward, seeing the last sliver of sunlight disappear below the horizon. She broke that trust with someone close to me, someone I believed I could rely on. Mia did not flinch. She was just listening, her face is unreadable. Her fingers tightened around the mug. "It wasn't only about me," I explained softly. "It was about the setting in which I wanted you and your brother to grow up. I didn't want you to believe that love was supposed to feel like suspicion, or that family meant accepting treachery." She nodded slowly, taking in the words. "Have you ever forgiven her?" she inquired quietly. I let out a big breath. I hadn't realized I was holding. No, I confess. Because forgiveness is not owed. It's something you offer when you're ready, when you feel lighter. And I've never needed it to be lighter. I simply needed to go forward. She looked at me and seemed to see not only her father, but the man beneath all the layers. "You're a strong father." I grinned and shook my head, feeling both proud and broken by her simple words. "No," I softly said, turning to meet her gaze. "I simply refuse to stay broken." We sat for a bit after that. No need to fill the silence. Sometimes words are unnecessary when the truth has already been established between you. Mia rested her head on my shoulder, and I placed my arm around her. "Thank you for telling me," she muttered. "Thank you for asking," I replied, since asking implied that she trusted me with her curiosity, bewilderment, and heart. And it meant everything. The past may have formed me, but it does not define me. And as the sun rose the next morning, painting the sky with colors of hope, I understood this was my new beginning. Not simply surviving, but also living. Everything became blurry with time, faces, sensations, and recollections. However, there was one thing I couldn't shake. Regardless of how much I tried, I knew the call was coming. It was almost comical at this point. The way life worked. You try to avoid the past, but it always finds a way to catch up. Sometimes you're prepared. Sometimes you just wish you could stay buried. But when the phone rang again, I knew it wasn't a call to retribution. It was not an appeal for my wrath. This time, however, things were different. It was early evening. The air was crisp, and a sense of autumn was settling in. Sophie and I were sitting on the porch, giggling over something foolish. She had a way of lighting everything up and making me forget. She had restored joy to my life in ways I didn't thought possible. The phone rang, and the familiar number flashed across the screen. I didn't even need to look to see who it was. "Dad, this is about Liam." I froze. The words struck me like a thunderclap. Unexpected, but not completely unwanted. Liam. The name was Ghost. For years, I hadn't thought about him. Not really. But just thinking about him reminded me of how heavy everything felt. Sophie observed a shift in my manner. Her smile faded as she recognized the seriousness of my attitude. "You okay?" I nodded and tried to clear my throat. I could feel a constriction in my chest. I was unsure if I was prepared for this. "What about him?" I managed to keep my voice raspy. The voice on the other end was shaky. It has an unfamiliar tone. When Liam made his mess, I did not hear a professional, calm voice. This was raw and vulnerable. "Liam, he is in the hospital. He's not doing well, Ryan. I wasn't sure what to say. I'd constructed a life without him, closing the door on our shared past. And yet, here I was, confronted with the truth of his existence, or what remained of it. The stillness hung thick between us. What happened? After a moment, the speaker spoke again. It's complicated. A terrible business transaction. He's into drugs, drinking, and whatever else you can think of. But, Ryan, he is dying. The words sank in slowly and bitterly, fading. My younger brother, Liam, is dying. It impacted harder than I anticipated. I once felt angry, the betrayal, and the hurt. They were all still present, boiling beneath. But there was something else underlying it. Guilt. Sophie's hand touched mine. Her touch grounds me. I squeezed it in gratitude for her presence. But my mind was a vortex of clashing ideas. What do you want me to do? I asked the question more gently than I had intended. He wants to see you. He's been asking for you, Ryan. The voice paused. I know it's a lot to ask, but this could be the opportunity for both of you to find closure. Closure? That word. What did it even mean now? 5 years. I had spent 5 years walking away from everything. My family, my brother, the memories that had previously defined me. And now I was stood on the verge of making a decision that would change everything once more. I will be there. I said the words, startling even myself. I wasn't sure why I said them. I wasn't sure if I had it in me. But at that same time, I had a realization. I was not doing this for Liam. I was doing it for me. I was not going to go back and relive the past. I wasn't going to go back and dig out the anger, the hurt, and treachery. But I needed it. I needed to see him. The hospital room was drab and sterile. The fluorescent lights hummed above, throwing lengthy shadows on the sterile white walls. Liam lay there. His formerly beautiful face was pallid and haggard. The weight of his years is seen in the lines etched deep into his skin. His hair, once thick and luscious, is now thin and weak. He seemed so little in the hospital bed, so unlike the man I had previously envied. I stood by the door for a time, observing him. He hadn't spotted me yet, but his eyes gradually opened. Ryan. His voice was harsh and feeble, but it was still present. I did not speak at first. I could not. I took a few steps forward, and the room closed in on me. Liam's gaze scanned a glimmer of something. Regret and hope flashed through them. I know I don't deserve this, but I need you to know. I'm sorry I screwed up. I ruined up everything. I couldn't take my eyes away. I had been waiting for this moment for so long. This apology would never arrive, but it was no longer about the words. It wasn't about making him feel inferior or telling him he'd ruined everything. No, I was here for me, for the part of me that had never given up. I took a big breath and sat next to him. Liam, I don't need your apologies. His eyes widened slightly, perplexity and hurt mingled. You don't know? I spoke gently, my voice calm. But I want you to understand something. You are not the only one who has lost everything. We both did. Liam did not answer immediately. His eyes closed briefly, as if to absorb the weight of my words. I understand. We sat silently after that. The weight of time hangs heavily between us. There was no great moment of reunion, no emotional hugs. There was only the quiet understanding that comes from sharing a past with two brothers who had been through hell and were finally letting go of what had damaged them. I did not remain long. I did not need to. Liam never requested forgiveness. You did not need to. In that room, everything was barren. I recognized that forgiving was not something you did for them. It is something you provide for yourself, and I'd done it a long time ago. I felt lighter as I exited the hospital, with the night air chilly and crisp against my skin. Maybe not healed, but lighter, because closure did not involve the past. It was about finally being able to move forward, free of burdens. And for the first time in years, I realized I was free. Thank you for listening to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Also, Leave a comment below to share your thoughts on what happened. Take care.